The night before my son's wedding, he texted the family group chat, "Mum, from now on, don't interfere in our household matters." His fiancée hit like immediately. I typed back, "Thank you for clarifying. I'm cancelling all automatic payments." At midnight, my phone exploded 100 missed calls, 143 panicked messages. They had no idea that all this time I'd been sitting on a secret, an old hacienda in New Mexico, with water rights the only thing that could bring their entire wedding to its knees. My name is Evelyn Marlowe, and at 62, I thought I'd seen every shade of disappointment a mother could experience. Widowed 8 years ago, I'd poured everything into being the safety net my son Caleb needed after his father's death. From my modest home in Tucson, where I'd worked managing funds for Sol Vista Community Trust, I'd watched him build his life at Grafton Ridge Builders, always ready with my checkbook when he stumbled. The message came through Family Forever, the group chat name now dripping with irony. Caleb's words glowed on my screen at 11:45 p. 3 weeks before his wedding to Sloane Whitby. "Mum, we need to establish boundaries. This is our wedding, our life. From now on, please don't interfere in our household matters. We're adults who need to stand on our own." Sloane's like appeared instantly, followed by her mother's thumbs up. Then Caleb's business partner, his cousin from Denver. Within minutes, 8 family members had endorsed my exile. I sat in my kitchen, the one where Caleb had sobbed over his first business failure, where I'd written the check to save him from bankruptcy, where Sloane had gushed about wedding venues while I mentally calculated what I could liquidate to help. The ceramic mug in my hand, a Mother's Day gift from 5 years ago, inscribed, "World's Most Generous Mom," suddenly felt like evidence in a crime I'd been too blind to see. My fingers moved across the phone screen with surgical precision. "Thank you for establishing clear boundaries, effective immediately. I'm cancelling all automatic payments and financial support. Best wishes for your independence. Send." The satisfaction lasted exactly 3 seconds before I opened my laptop and began the systematic dismantling of my financial entanglements. First, the mortgage assistance for Caleb's house, $850 monthly, I'd been covering since his temporary setback 2 years ago. Click. Cancelled. The business credit card he'd been borrowing for client dinners and materials, average monthly charges of $1,200. Click. Suspended. His truck insurance. Sloane's phone plan they'd added to my account for the family discount. The emergency fund auto transfer I'd set up after his 3rd financial crisis. Click. 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 Each cancellation generated an email confirmation. I imagined them landing in Caleb's inbox like small grenades, silent until he'd check his phone in the morning. The wine storage subscription he'd charged to my card for networking purposes. The country club membership he'd insisted was essential for business development. Even the Netflix account he'd been sharing with half his office. At 12:03 a.m., my phone began its symphony. The first call came from Caleb. I watched his photo him in his tool belt at a job site, grinning pulse on the screen. Declined. Sloane called next. Then Caleb again. Then numbers I didn't recognize, probably calling from Sloane's mother's phone. The landline at their apartment. Maybe even the neighbors they'd recruited. The text messages poured in like a broken dam. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Mrs. Marlowe, there seems to be a misunderstanding. You're being completely irrational. The wedding venue needs the deposit by tomorrow. How can you do this 3 weeks before the wedding? Mom, please pick up." This is emotional manipulation. We just meant you don't need to help with decorations. Answer your phone. I turned the phone face down and made myself a cup of chamomile tea. The kitchen window reflected my face, tired. Yes. But something else too. For the first time in years, I saw clarity in my own eyes. Every emergency loan, every temporary coverage, every just this once favor had been another bar in a cage I'd built around myself with my own generosity. The house felt different in the silence, lighter somehow, as if the weight of carrying 2 adult children had been physically pressing down on the roof beams. I walked to my home office, really just a converted bedroom, where I kept my files and pulled out the folder labeled Caleb Financial. The receipts, bank statements, and IOUs painted a picture worth $49,000 over 4 years. That didn't include the monthly expenses I'd been covering or the wedding costs I'd already sunk. But they didn't know about the Hacienda. Nobody did. My aunt's property in Las Cruces had transferred to me 6 months ago, so quietly that even my lawyer had remarked on my discretion. A Spanish colonial treasure with something more valuable than its adobe walls and hand-painted tiles, senior water rights to the acequia system that irrigated half the county's event venues. Including, I'd recently discovered, the Whitby Ranch, where my son's wedding was scheduled to transform me from mother to mere guest at the drink station. I closed the folder and smiled. They wanted boundaries. I'd show them what boundaries looked like when the person drawing them controlled the water. 3 weeks before the wedding, I arrived at the rehearsal brunch, carrying 2 cases of champagne I'd special ordered from a vineyard in Napa. The country club of Tucson sparkled in the morning sun, its manicured lawns stretching toward the mountains like a green carpet rolled out for royalty. I'd paid the $2,800 deposit for this venue 3 months ago when Sloane had clasped her hands together and said it was absolutely perfect for setting the tone. Evelyn finally, Sloane's mother, Patricia Whitby, swooped toward me with her clipboard color-coded, laminated, and wielded like a weapon. The drink station is through there. We need the champagne chilled and arranged by height. The aesthetic is ascending elegance. She pointed to a corner table, partially hidden behind a potted palm, designated with a small tent card reading Beverages, not hosted by Evelyn Marlowe, or with gratitude to the mother of the groom. Just Beverages. I wheeled my cases past the main tables where Sloane stood holding court, her bridesmaids arranged around her like ladies in waiting. She wore a white sundress, practicing for the big day. She'd told everyone at least 6 times and was gesturing dramatically as she recounted the proposal story. And then Caleb said, "Our family begins today." And I just knew we were meant to build this life together. My mother has been incredible with the planning. She has such vision. This whole aesthetic was her idea. Patricia beamed from across the room. We Whitbys know how to throw a proper celebration. It's in our blood. Our family. We Whitbys. The pronouns stung like small cuts. I arranged champagne bottles while listening to the jazz quartet I'd booked for $1,200 play softly in the background. The flowers I'd paid $900 for white roses and baby's breath, exactly as Sloane had insisted, decorated every surface. The catering staff, secured with my credit card, circulated with appetizers I recognized from the $7,000 invoice sitting in my inbox. Evelyn, the bottles need to face label out. Patricia called over, and make sure the garnish bowls are symmetrical. I adjusted the bottles and watched Caleb work the room, his easy smile and firm handshake charming Sloane's extended family. He caught my eye once, gave me a quick thumbs up, then returned to conversation with Sloane's uncle about commercial real estate opportunities. Not once did he come over to help. Not once did he introduce me to anyone. When it came time for toasts, Sloane stood up, raising her glass high. I want to thank everyone who made this possible. Mom, you're my rock. None of this would exist without your vision and expertise. Dad, thank you for showing me what a real partnership looks like. And to my future family. She gestured broadly to Caleb's side of the room, carefully avoiding eye contact with me. We're so excited to blend our traditions with yours. The crowd clapped. Patricia dabbed her eyes. I stood behind the drink station, invisible as the wallpaper, while my son toasted the incredible women who shaped us and managed to thank his deceased father, his mentors, his business partners, and even his college football coach, without mentioning the woman who'd kept him afloat for 35 years. After the brunch, I was loading empty champagne bottles into my car when I heard voices from the valet station. Sloane and her mother stood by their Mercedes, not seeing me behind the larger SUVs. Did you see her dress? Sloane laughed. I told Caleb his mom needs style help, but he says she's too set in her ways. Well, at least she's contributory, Patricia replied. Though really, just the minimum. Thank God we're handling the actual wedding planning. Can you imagine if we'd left it to her paper plates and supermarket wine? She did offer to help more, Sloane said, climbing into the passenger seat. But honestly, it's easier this way. We get what we need from her, and she feels included. Caleb says she loves feeling useful. Smart man. Keep her at arm's length, but keep the checkbook close. They drove off, laughing, leaving me standing among the empty bottles, finally understanding my role in this production. I wasn't the mother of the groom. I wasn't even a valued guest. I was an ATM wearing a mother's face, programmed to dispense cash and shut up about it. That night, I started a new notebook, not a journal, an accounting ledger. Every receipt, every bank transfer, every small favor went into neat columns. 4 years of financial hemorrhaging filled 20 pages by the time I was done. The wedding expenses alone had already reached $14,000, not counting what was yet to come. At the bottom of the last page, I wrote, "Services rendered without acknowledgement. Payment due respect." I thought about the Hacienda's cool adobe walls, the courtyard where my aunt had hosted legendary parties, the water rights that could turn a desert into a garden, or if I chose, leave it as dust. They wanted me to play a bit part in their production. Fine. But they were about to learn that even extras could steal the show when they controlled the stage. The ledger spread across my kitchen table like a crime scene photograph. Each line item another piece of evidence in a case I'd been too blind to see. Under the harsh fluorescent light at 2:15 a.m., the numbers told a story that love had kept hidden. Year 1. After Richard's death, emergency loan for Caleb's investment opportunity. $8,500 never repaid, covering construction materials when client payment delayed. $3,200 bail money for DUI he swore was a misunderstanding. $2,000 temporary health insurance coverage. $400 month year. 2 down payment assistance for his truck. $6,000 business license and LLC formation. $800 bridge loan for payroll at Grafton Ridge. $12,000 started paying his mortgage during rough patch. $850 month year 3. Engagement ring loan for Sloane. $4,500 couples therapy after their first breakup. $2,400 weekend rehab for his stress management. $5,000 truck insurance added to my policy. $180 month year 4. Current wedding venue deposits. $2,800 catering down payment. $7,000 of flowers. Music. Photography deposits. $3,100 Sloan's phone plan. Family discount. 85-month business credit card charges averaging $1 month. The calculator's blue display glowed 49 watts. $735 in lump sums. Another $23,000 in recurring expenses, not including groceries I'd bought, dinners I'd paid for, the small Amazon purchases charged to my account. I pulled up my banking app and scrolled through recent transactions. Last Tuesday, $340 at Morton's Steakhouse, Caleb's business dinner. Friday, $180 at Nordstrom, something from Sloan's registry charged to my card by accident. Saturday, $500 cash withdrawal, probably for his golf weekend with clients. Each transaction had become so routine I'd stopped questioning them, like breathing or blinking automatic, unconscious, killing me slowly. My laptop chimed with a new email. Sloan had sent a spreadsheet at 2:43 a.m. Subject line, Wedding Budget Final. Please review ASAP. I opened it to find a color-coded masterpiece of presumption. Column A listed vendors. Column B showed total costs. Column C showed Whitby family contribution. And column D showed EM contribution. My initials. Not even my name. Like I was a corporation, not a mother. The most insulting line item, mother of groom dress, $5,000, EM, contribution. I hadn't bought a dress. I hadn't even been invited to shop for one. But there it was, already allocated in their budget, already spent in their minds. Below that, rehearsal dinner, $8,000, EM, contribution. The rehearsal dinner they'd planned at a restaurant I'd never seen, with a menu I hadn't chosen, for a guest list that relegated me to table 4. A note at the bottom, in red text, EM. Please confirm wire transfer by Monday for final vendor payments. Sloan's dad's company is handling contracts, so make check to Whitby Enterprises for tax purposes. Thanks. S. Tax purposes. They wanted me to pay for my own marginalization and help them get a write-off for it. I closed the laptop and walked to my filing cabinet, pulling out the folder I'd avoided for months, Richard's estate, final. Inside, between the life insurance paperwork and his pension documents, lay the deed transfer from my Aunt Carmen's estate, the Hacienda Santa Liria in Las Cruces, New Mexico, 20 acres of high desert beauty, a 6-bedroom adobe compound, and most importantly, senior water rights dating back to 1847. The water rights document was 40 pages of legal language, but I'd had my estate attorney explain every clause. The Hacienda controlled primary access to the Acequia Madre, the mother ditch that fed irrigation to 300 square miles of properties. During drought restrictions, which New Mexico declared almost annually, now senior rights holders could legally restrict flow to junior holders. The Whitby Ranch, established in 1962, was decidedly junior. I'd visited the Hacienda only twice since inheriting it, both times alone. The property manager, Luis, had kept it immaculate. The courtyard fountain still bubbled with spring water. The tile work still gleamed in the sun, and the guest houses could easily accommodate a wedding party. I'd told no one about it. Not even Caleb. Especially not Caleb. My phone buzzed with another text from Sloan. Did you see the budget need confirmation ASAP? Also, we're thinking of cutting the guest list from your side. Space issues. We'll send revised list tomorrow. Space issues. At a ranch venue that advertised capacity for 500. My side of the guest list had 30 names. I made a decision then. Sitting in my kitchen with $72,000 of receipts spread before me like tarot cards predicting my future. I pulled out a fresh legal pad and began writing, Pattern of financial exploitation, timeline and evidence. Every instance went down in chronological order. Every text asking for money. Every guilt trip when I hesitated. Every time Sloane mentioned how comfortable I seemed. How lucky Caleb was to have a mother with resources. How important it was to invest in family. By dawn, I had 20 pages of documentation. By 7 I had an appointment with my accountant for that afternoon. By 8 I had researched water law attorneys in New Mexico. They wanted to erase me from their story. Fine. But I was about to become the most important character in their final act. The pounding on my door started at 6:45 5 hours after I'd cancelled everything. I stayed in my kitchen, sipping coffee from my favourite mug, not the world's most generous mum one, which I'd thrown in the trash and counted the intervals between knocks. Aggressive, entitled, the rhythm of people who'd never heard no before. Mum, open the door, we know you're in there. Caleb's voice cracked like he was 15 again, caught sneaking out. But he wasn't 15. He was 35, standing on my porch with his fiancée, demanding entry to a home he'd never helped maintain. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. Good morning. They looked dishevelled. Caleb's usually perfect hair stood at odd angles, and Sloane's designer workout clothes were clearly yesterday's outfit. Behind them, her white Mercedes idled in my driveway, still running like they'd expected this to be quick. What the hell did you do? Caleb pushed past me into the house. Sloane followed. Her mouth pursed like she'd tasted something bitter. I respected your boundaries, I said, not moving from the doorway. Coffee's fresh if you want some. The venue just called. Sloane's voice pitched high, hysterical. They said the deposit check bounced. The florist wants immediate payment. The caterer is threatening to cancel. You've destroyed our wedding. I walked to the coffee maker and poured myself a fresh cup. Only one cup. They watched, waiting for me to offer them some. I didn't. Those sound like your problems, I said, sitting at my kitchen table. Independent adults handle their own affairs. Cut the crap. Mom. Caleb slammed his palm on my counter, the same counter where he'd carved his initials when he was 8. I'd never fixed it, keeping it as a reminder of happier times. You know we were counting on your help. Counting on it? I laughed, and it sounded strange even to me, sharp, unfamiliar. You mean assuming it, taking it, expecting it, while explicitly telling me to stay out of your lives? That's not what we meant, Sloane started. Then what did you mean? When you assigned me to the drink station? When you thanked everyone but me at the brunch? When you sent me a budget at 2 a.m. demanding $5,000 for a dress I don't have? Sloane's face reddened. We were trying to include you. As an ATM, nothing more. This is financial abuse of the elderly, Sloane snapped, pulling out her phone. My cousin's a lawyer. You can't just withdraw promised support. We have texts proving you agreed to help. Help. Yes. Not subsidize your entire existence. I pulled out my folder, thick with receipts. $72,000 in 4 years. Would you like to see the itemized list, the steakhouse dinners, the golf weekends, the truck payments, all while you were telling people I contribute just the minimum? Caleb went pale. You were listening. I was loading the champagne bottles I paid for into my car. You know, being useful. Isn't that what you told Sloane? I love feeling useful. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Sloane recovered first, switching tactics with the speed of someone used to manipulation. Evelyn, we're sorry if we hurt your feelings. Wedding planning is stressful. We didn't mean to seem ungrateful. Her voice dripped artificial sweetener. If you restore the payments, we can discuss a more prominent role for you. Table 3 instead of table 4. Head table, she offered, like she was negotiating a hostage release. No. This is insane. Caleb exploded. The wedding is in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. We'll lose everything. Then perhaps you should have thought of that before treating your mother like a servant with a credit card. I'll sue you, Caleb said quietly, dangerously. Parental financial abuse, breach of verbal contract, intentional infliction of emotional distress. I smiled and pulled out my phone, showing him a text chain. His messages over the years, just need a quick loan. Can you cover this temporarily? I'll pay you back next month. Emergency, please don't ask questions. Please do sue me. I'd love to see a judge review this evidence, especially the part where you used my business credit card for personal expenses. That's fraud. Caleb. Federal fraud. Sloane grabbed Caleb's arm. We should go. Not yet. I stood up, my 5'4" frame suddenly feeling taller. If you want any financial assistance going forward, here are my terms. Full written acknowledgement of all past debts, a structured repayment plan, public recognition at the wedding of my contributions, and marriage counseling, real counseling, not the 3 sessions you quit last time. Go to hell, Sloane spat, dragging Caleb toward the door. Oh, one more thing? I called after them. That budget you sent, the one where you wanted me to write a check to Whitby Enterprises, that's tax fraud. I've forwarded it to my accountant and attorney. They left. Sloane's Mercedes spraying gravel as she peeled out. I stood in my doorway, watching them flee, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Power. Not the power of money, but the power of truth. My phone rang immediately. Patricia Whitby. I let it go to voicemail, then played it on speaker. Evelyn, this is completely unacceptable. Call me immediately to resolve this like adults. Like adults. From people who'd been treating me like a child's piggy bank. I deleted the message and called my lawyer instead. It was time to discuss New Mexico water law. My financial advisor, Marisol Vega, spread the credit card statements across her conference table like a dealer showing cards. Each highlighted charge told its own story of deception. Mother of God? Evelyn? She whistled. Your son's been running a whole business through your personal cards. Look at this $8,000 at a building supply company, coded as home improvement. But your house hasn't been renovated. He said it was for emergency repairs at his properties, which he then billed to clients. I'm guessing double dipping. Marisol pulled up another statement. $4,000 at Scottsdale Golf Resort, $3,000 at Phoenician Spa, all labeled business development. This isn't just financial exploitation, it's systematic fraud. Patricia North, my attorney, sat across from us taking notes in her precise handwriting. She was expensive, $400 an hour, but worth every penny. We need to document everything before they lawyer up. Marisol, can you run a full forensic accounting? Already started. But Evelyn, there's something else. Marisol pulled up Caleb's business registration. Grafton Ridge Builders, you're listed as a silent partner, 20% stake. My coffee cup froze halfway to my mouth. What? He filed this 3 years ago. Probably for credit purposes, your credit score is excellent. His was trash after the DUI. But here's the interesting part as a partner. You're entitled to see all books, all contracts, all financial records. Patricia smiled like a shark scenting blood. And if he's been commingling personal and business expenses. IRS criminal investigation? Marisol finished. Minimum. I set down my cup carefully. I don't want to destroy him. He's still my son. Then what do you want? Patricia asked. Respect, accountability, and for that wedding to happen on my terms, not theirs. Patricia leaned back. Tell me about this hacienda you mentioned. I pulled out the deed and water rights documentation. Both women went silent as they read. Patricia actually gasped when she reached the water seniority section. Holy shit, sorry. Evelyn, but do you understand what you have here? During drought declarations, you could legally cut off half of southern New Mexico, including the Whitby Ranch. Especially the Whitby Ranch. They're junior rights holders from 1962. Your rights date to 1847. In water law, you're royalty. Marisol was already pulling up property records on her laptop. The Whitby Ranch venue. Gorgeous place, very high-end. But look at this, they're behind on their loans. 60 days delinquent on a second mortgage from Desert Crown Financial. How much? $87,000. And Desert Crown is a private lender. They don't mess around with foreclosure. The plan formed in my mind like a photograph developing in solution, becoming clearer with each second. Can Solvista Community Trust buy that note? Patricia and Marisol exchanged glances. Through a subsidiary? Yes, Marisol said slowly. But Evelyn, that would make you their creditor, with the ability to call the note. Jesus. Patricia laughed. Remind me never to piss you off. We spent the next 3 hours building the strategy. Solvista Community Trust, where I'd worked for 15 years and still served on the board, had a real estate investment arm that regularly bought distressed debt. One phone call to the board chair, explaining the personal situation, and we had approval to pursue the note purchase through a Shell LLC. Now, about the water, Patricia said, pulling up New Mexico state regulations. You can't just shut it off vindictively, but you can require proof of insurance, proper permits, and safety compliance for any large events using your water access. And if they don't have those things, then you're legally obligated to restrict access. It would be irresponsible not to. Marisol's phone buzzed. Oh, this is rich. Caleb just posted on LinkedIn about overcoming family challenges to build business success. The comments are all about how inspiring he is, how he's self-made. Self-made? With $72,000 of my dollars and my credit as his foundation. There's more, Patricia said, studying her laptop. The wedding venue contract with Whitby Ranch, posted on their Instagram. It's for next Saturday, the 28th. But look at the fine print they're advertising. Full service includes water features, fountains, and climate control misters. All of which require water they get from my acequia. Exactly. And New Mexico's under Stage 2 drought restrictions. Large-scale water features require special event permits. Want to bet they don't have them. I thought about Sloane's Instagram, the countless posts about her dream desert oasis wedding, the photos of the venue's famous fountain where they plan to say their vows, all of it dependent on water that, legally, flowed through my control. Set up the purchase of the note, I said. And Patricia, draft a formal notice about water compliance requirements. Send it to every venue in the Hacienda system, not just Whitby Ranch. Make it look routine. When do you want it delivered? I calculated backwards from the wedding date. Monday, 5 days before the wedding. Enough time to comply if they scramble, not enough time to find an alternate venue if they don't. Brutal, Marisol said admiringly, but legal. One more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. I want to formally document my ownership stake in Grafton Ridge Builders. Request a full audit. Every receipt, every invoice, every client contract. Patricia started typing. That'll take them weeks to compile. It'll be a nightmare right before the wedding. Yes, I agreed, thinking of all the nights I'd stayed up worrying about Caleb's finances while he was spending my money at steakhouses. It will be. As we wrapped up, Marisol asked, "What if they just comply? Get the permits, pay the note, handle everything properly?" I smiled, remembering Aunt Carmen's favorite saying, "Control the water, control the valley." Then they'll have learned a valuable lesson about respecting the hand that feeds them, or in this case, waters them. Monday morning arrived with the precision of a surgical strike. At 9 a.m. sharp. Certified letters landed at Whitby Ranch and 12 other venues along the Hacienda system. By 9:30, my phone was vibrating off my kitchen counter. Patricia had crafted the notice beautifully officiously bureaucratic, citing 17 different statutes, requiring proof of 7 different permits for any event over 50 people using Hacienda water. The deadline for compliance Thursday at 5 p.m. Any venue operating without proper documentation after that would face immediate water restriction. The first call came from Patricia Whitby herself. I let it ring through to voicemail, then played it on speaker while sipping my coffee. "Evelyn, I don't know what game you're playing, but we have contracts, legal contracts. The venue has operated for 20 years. This is clearly targeted harassment, and our lawyer will delete." The second call was from an unknown number. Caleb's voice, using someone else's phone. "Mom, please. We can work this out. Don't destroy our wedding over hurt feelings." Hurt feelings. As if $72,000 was about feelings. By noon, the shell company Marisol had set up, Desert Holdings LLC, had successfully purchased the Whitby Ranch's distressed note from Desert Crown Financial for 60 cents on the dollar. I was now Patricia Whitby's primary creditor, though she wouldn't know that for another 24 hours when the transfer recorded. At 2 p.m., I received an email from Sloan, the subject line, Olive Branch. "Mrs. Marlowe, we may have gotten off on the wrong foot. Wedding planning is stressful for everyone involved. I'm sure we can resolve this misunderstanding like family. Would you consider meeting for tea to discuss best?" Sloan. Family. The word she'd specifically excluded me from just days ago. I replied, "I'll be at the Hacienda Santa Liria in Las Cruces all week, preparing for a potential event. You're welcome to visit if you can make the drive. Business hours only." Within an hour, Caleb texted, "What Hacienda? What are you talking about?" I didn't respond. Tuesday brought escalation. A lawyer named Richardson called, identifying himself as representing the Whitby Marlowe wedding party. His tone started friendly, shifted to cajoling, then ended with threats. "Mrs. Marlowe, interfering with water rights without cause is a federal issue. The Bureau of Reclamation doesn't look kindly on vindictive water manipulation." Patricia, listening on speaker in my living room, mouthed bullshit and made jerk-off motions with her hand. Mr. Richardson, I replied calmly. I'm simply ensuring all venues comply with New Mexico drought restrictions and safety requirements. As a senior water rights holder, it's my legal obligation. I'm sure the Whitby Ranch, as a professional venue, already has all necessary permits. Silence. Then, we'll be filing an emergency injunction. Please do. My attorney would love to discuss the venue's insurance status, permit history, and that interesting second mortgage situation. He hung up. Wednesday arrived with a formal notice from Desert Holdings LLC to Whitby Ranch payment in full of the outstanding note was required within 48 hours, or proceedings would begin for asset seizure. The wedding was in 3 days. My phone exploded. 47 calls in 1 hour. Texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably Sloane's entire wedding party. Even a few flying monkey relatives, deployed to guilt me. Evelyn, this is Cousin Janet. I'm concerned about your mental state. Your husband would be ashamed of this behavior. No wonder Caleb needed boundaries. You're toxic. Richard would be ashamed, Richard, who'd taught me to read contracts, who'd insisted we raise Caleb to be responsible, who'd died thinking his son would take care of me. I turned off my phone and drove to Las Cruces. The hacienda was even more beautiful than I'd remembered. Luis had outdone himself. The courtyard bloomed with desert roses. The fountain sparkled in the sun. And the main hall could easily accommodate 200 guests. The vintage Talavera tile work alone was worth more than Sloane's entire dream wedding. Senora Marlowe. Luis greeted me. The water inspector was here. All our permits are current. The event licenses are posted. We could host a wedding tomorrow if needed. Excellent. We might need to... Thursday, 5 p.m. Deadline. Patricia called at 5:05. Whitby Ranch submitted partial documentation. They have insurance but no drought permits, no safety certification for their fountain features, and this is beautiful no proof of legal water access agreements. They've been assuming historical use meant legal right. And, under New Mexico law, I'm required to advise you to restrict water access until they're compliant. The liability if someone gets hurt would fall on you as the senior rights holder. Then I guess I have no choice. None at all. I'll send the restriction notice now, effective immediately. At 7:30 p.m., as I was eating dinner on the hacienda's portal, watching the sunset paint the mountains pink, Caleb's truck pulled into the drive. He got out alone, looking haggard, older than his 35 years. "Mum," he said quietly. "Please." I gestured to the chair across from me. He sat, and for the first time in years, I saw tears in his eyes. The venue's cancelling. They can't operate without water. Sloane's family is going ballistic. Her parents are threatening to call off the wedding entirely. They're saying I'm from trash, that I can't control my own mother. You can't. I agreed. You never could. You could only exploit her. I know, he whispered. I know what we did. What I did. I'm sorry. Sorry because you're facing consequences. Or sorry for treating me like a wallet with no feelings. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I have a solution, I said, standing up. But it comes with conditions, non-negotiable. Friday night, 11:47 p. Less than 12 hours until the wedding that was dissolving like sugar in rain. My phone lit up with a text from Sloane. We're outside. I opened the hacienda's heavy wooden door to find them on the portal, backlit by their headlights. Sloane clutched a manila folder, her knuckles white. Caleb stood behind her, shoulders slumped. behind them. Patricia and Robert Whitby waited in their Mercedes, engine running like they might flee at any moment. "Come in," I said. "All of you." They filed into the main hall, their eyes widening at the vaulted ceilings, the hand-carved vigas, the museum-quality art on the walls. Sloane's mother actually gasped when she saw the vintage chandelier from Barcelona. "You own this." Patricia Whitby's voice cracked. 6 months now, inherited from my Aunt Carmen. She threw legendary parties here in the 70s. Writers, artists, politicians. I gestured to the photos lining the hallway. "That's her with Georgia O'Keeffe. And there, with the governor." I led them to the formal dining room, where Patricia North was already seated with a stack of documents. The Whitbys exchanged nervous glances. They'd expected desperation, not preparation. "The situation is simple," I began, staying standing while they sat. "The wedding venue has no water. The health department won't clear it for an event. You have 200 guests arriving tomorrow for a celebration that currently has no location." "This is extortion," Robert Whitby started. "No, it's consequence." I slid a paper across the table. "Mr. Whitby, are you aware your venue owes $87,000 to Desert Holdings LLC? That note was called yesterday. You have 6 hours to pay in full or face asset seizure." Patricia Whitby went pale. "Desert Holdings, that's you." "A company I'm affiliated with?" "Yes. We invest in distressed properties. Your ranch is quite distressed." "What do you want?" Sloane asked quietly. I placed 3 documents on the table. First, a signed acknowledgement of financial exploitation. Not criminal. I'm not sending my son to jail, but a civil acknowledgement of the pattern of taking advantage of my resources without reciprocal respect or gratitude. Caleb reached for the document. His hands shook as he read. "Second," I continued, "a repayment schedule. 36 months. No interest because you're still my son. But legally binding. Every payment you've missed on your mortgage. Every dinner charged to my card. Every emergency that was really poor planning. $49,000. "That's impossible," Sloane started. "Your engagement ring cost $4,500. Your honeymoon in Cabo is budgeted at $8,000. It's possible. You just have to choose what's more important, Instagram or integrity." I placed the 3rd document down. Finally, a post-nuptial agreement. Patricia here drew it up. It separates all debts incurred before marriage and requires individual financial counseling for 12 months. Post-nup. Sloane's voice pitched high. "We're not even married yet. You will be. Tomorrow at noon, if you sign. Here at the Hacienda. I'll provide the venue. Already decorated. The catering can be redirected. Luis has all the permits. The photographer, florist, musicians. Everyone can be here by 10 a.m. But..." I let the word hang like a sword. "But," Caleb asked. "Guest list cuts to 100. Immediate family and actual friends only. The announcement will state that Evelyn Marlowe is providing the venue as the primary wedding sponsor. Every toast will acknowledge this. And Sloane, your Instagram post tomorrow will tag me and thank me by name for making your dream wedding possible." "Absolutely not." Patricia Whitby stood. "We'll sue. You'll what, sue? The woman who owns your venue's water rights and holds your mortgage? Go ahead. I'm sure the society pages would love that story. Whitby Ranch faces foreclosure day before family wedding." Silence stretched through the room like a held breath. At 12:23, A. Sloane broke. Fine. Sloane. Her mother gasped. What choice do we have, mother? The guests are arriving. The flowers are ordered. My dress is here. She turned to me, eyes hard. You win? This isn't about winning. It's about recognition, respect, boundaries that go both ways. Caleb signed first, his signature shaky but legible. Then the repayment schedule, initialing every page. The postnup took longer. Sloane read every line twice, had her father call their lawyer, argued about 3 clauses. But at 1:15 a.m., she signed. The Hacienda will be ready by 10, I said, collecting the documents. Luis will coordinate with your vendors. Patricia here will ensure the water rights are restored to Whitby Ranch once you're in compliance with permits about 6 weeks, if you file Monday. They stood to leave, defeated, smaller somehow than when they'd arrived. One more thing, I said as they reached the door. This olive branch comes with thorns. Default on the repayment, disrespect me publicly, or return to your pattern of financial exploitation, and I'll exercise every legal option available. The water rights, the mortgage, the audit of Grafton Ridge Builders, everything. We understand, Caleb said quietly. I hope you do, because family isn't about blood or money. It's about mutual respect. You forgot that. This is your chance to remember. They filed out into the New Mexico darkness. I watched their taillights disappear, then turned to Patricia North. Think they'll honor it? She shrugged, gathering the signed documents. Doesn't matter. These are legally binding. You're protected either way. I walked through the hacienda, imagining tomorrow's wedding. Not the Instagram fantasy Sloane had planned, but something smaller, realer, something where the mother of the groom would be visible, acknowledged, respected. At 2 a.m., I texted Luis. Wedding at noon, 100 guests, elegant but simple. And Luis, make sure my table is front and center. His response was immediate. Si, señora, it will be perfect. Perfect. No, but it would be mine. Saturday arrived wrapped in New Mexico sunshine, the kind that turns adobe walls to gold and makes even bitter medicine taste sweeter. By 10 a.m., the hacienda bustled with controlled chaos. Vendors who'd been prepared to set up at Whitby Ranch redirected their trucks down the dusty road to Santa Liria, their GPS systems recalculating like everyone's expectations. Luis had worked magic overnight. The courtyard bloomed with white roses and desert sage, simpler than Sloane's original vision, but stunning against the ancient tiles. The fountain, my fountain, with my water sparkled like scattered diamonds. Round tables dressed in cream linens dotted the portal, and at the very centre, impossible to miss, sat table 1 with a placard reading, Evelyn Marlowe, mother of the groom. Sloane arrived at 10:30, her makeup artist and hairdresser in tow, face set in a mask of forced gratitude. Mrs. Marlowe, she said, each word seemingly pulled from her throat with pliers. Thank you for accommodating us. You're welcome. Sloane, your dressing room is in the East Guest House, the one with the Frida Kahlo paintings. Her eyes widened slightly. She'd studied art history, I knew, before switching to marketing. Original Carlos. 2 sketches, yes. Aunt Carmen collected wisely. Something shifted in her expression. Not warmth, exactly, but a crack in the ice. I didn't know you came from this. You never asked. The guests began arriving at 11:15. The reduced list had eliminated the peripheral players, Sloane's sorority sisters, who'd never met Caleb. his drinking buddies from college, the business connections invited for show. What remained were the people who actually mattered, who'd known them longer than their Instagram stories. Patricia Whitby supervised with barely contained fury, adjusting flowers that didn't need adjusting, re-angling chairs that were perfectly placed. When the photographer asked about family photos, she said loudly, "We'll need several groupings to accommodate everyone's situations." "Just one grouping," I corrected, walking past in my new dress, not $5,000, but elegant enough. "We're all family now, aren't we?" Patricia. At 11:55, Caleb found me in the kitchen, checking with the caterers. He wore his father's cufflinks, the ones I'd given him that morning. "Mom," he said, "I need to say something before we—" "No," I interrupted. "You already said it. You signed it. Now you need to live it?" I was going to say thank you. Actually, thank you. Not for the money or the venue or saving the wedding. For showing me who I'd become. I studied his face, looking for the manipulation, the angle. Found only exhaustion and maybe, possibly, genuine recognition. "You're welcome. Now go get married. And Caleb, your father would be proud of you today. Not for the wedding, for the accountability." The ceremony began at noon, sharp. I walked down the aisle, first mother of the groom, finally in my proper place to Pachelbel's canon, played by the string quartet I'd originally booked. The guests stood as I passed, and I heard whispers. "Is this her house? She owns all this." I had no idea. When the officiant asked who gave their blessings for this union, I stood alongside the Whitbys. "His mother does," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the courtyard. Patricia Whitby's jaw tightened, but she nodded acknowledgement. The reception unfolded like a play, where everyone knew their roles had changed, but not their new lines. The reduced guest list meant actual conversation instead of performative mingling. The simpler menu, green chile enchiladas and local wines instead of the pretentious fusion Sloane had planned, drew genuine compliments. Then came the toasts. Robert Whitby went first, thanking the families for coming together. Generic, safe. Sloane's sister managed 3 sentences about love conquering obstacles. Then the DJ handed me the microphone. The room fell silent. When my husband Richard died 8 years ago, he left me 2 things this hacienda through his family, and a son who needed to find his own way. I looked directly at Caleb. Today, both have finally come home. I raised my glass to the newlyweds. "Caleb and Sloane, you've learned that generosity without gratitude becomes obligation. That family without respect becomes transaction. And that boundaries, properly set, don't divide us, they define us." The photographer's flash captured Sloane's face in that moment, surprise mixing with something like understanding. This hacienda has hosted celebrations for 50 years. Artists, writers, builders of dreams. Today, it hosts 2 people building a marriage on a foundation of hard truths rather than comfortable lies. That's worth celebrating. I set down the microphone and returned to my seat. The applause started slowly, led surprisingly by Sloane's grandmother, then built into something genuine. As the DJ started the music for dancing, I walked to the corner of the courtyard, past the drink station where they'd originally planned to hide me. The projection screen Louise had set up displayed a single slide, the signed acknowledgement. Amounts blurred, but signatures clear. Titled, "The Cost of a Wedding Honesty." Sloane appeared at my elbow, champagne in hand, That's brutal. That's accountability. Your Instagram post tomorrow, don't forget to tag me. She actually laughed. Short and sharp. You know what I'm beginning to see where Caleb gets his backbone? He just forgot to use it for a while. 36 months of payments will help him remember? Yeah, she said, watching her new husband dance with her mother. It will. At 3 p. I stood in the doorway of my hacienda, watching the newlyweds drive away in their decorated car. The guests were departing, murmuring about the beautiful venue, the surprising elegance, the mother of the groom who'd apparently been hiding an empire. Luis appeared beside me. Senora, shall I close the water valve to the Whitby ranch? No, I said, surprising myself. Leave it open. They have 6 weeks to get permits. If they don't, we revisit. He nodded and walked away, leaving me alone in the doorway of the house that had waited 6 months to reveal its purpose. Boundaries, I thought, closing the heavy wooden door. The wedding was over. The marriage and the repayment plan was just beginning. And for the first time in years, I wasn't paying for any of it. Thank you for listening to this story about boundaries, respect, and the power of standing your ground. I'd love to hear where you're listening from. Please comment below and let's connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts on Evelyn's journey. What would you have done in her situation?